gatherings and staying in place. Electronic participation is encouraged and pursuant to the emergency ordinance, physical attendance by the public is not allowed. I now turn it over to all members of this board to state whether they are physically present or participating by electronic or remote means. Ms. Kupka.
Annie Kupka, physically present.
Mr. Parker.
Alan Parker, participating remotely.
Mr. Bennett. Mr. Bennett.
Sorry, I thought my microphone was on. Mike Bennett, participating remotely.
Mr. Morris.
James Morris, participating remotely.
And Kathy Binder, participating remotely. I now turn it over to all members of the board, staff and the clerk are responsible for receiving public comment. Notice of opportunities for the public to access and participate have been widely disseminated on the county website and through other county resources. I direct the clerk to include this statement in the members remotely participating and those physically present to be memorialized in the minutes. We have a call to order and an invocation by Mr. Parker. Mr. Parker, take it away.
If everybody can bow their heads. Heavenly Father, we want to thank you for the many blessings in our lives and ask that you watch over the citizens of King George daily. We ask as we gather here tonight that you provide guidance and wisdom that we make decisions that are in the best interest of our customers as well as the citizens of King George at large. We ask these things in your name. Amen.
Amen. Mr. Weekly, the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Weekly, we didn't hear your microphone or any microphones in the boardroom there.
I apologize. I had my mic off, but you didn't hear any sound through the other.
No, we didn't hear any sound.
Okay.
Right, we have, is there any amendments to the agenda?
No amendments, Madam Chair.
All right, public comment. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes per person in order to afford everyone an opportunity to speak. If comments relate to a specific public hearing item, we ask that you offer those comments at the time of the public hearing. Is there anyone who submitted correspondence, not for the public hearing, but just as public comment, Mr. Weekly?
No, ma'am, Madam Chair. There are no public comments that were submitted.
Does any board member have any public comments? No, and is there anyone online that would like to give a statement that is not pertaining to the public hearing?
Do you have anybody online?
No, I do not.
No, ma'am. No, ma'am.
All right, we will move on to reports from members of the board. Mr. Bennett.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have one item I'd like to share. At our meeting on April 21st, I reported on the progress of the FEMA grant for the Riverbank Stabilization Plan in Fairview Beach. I said on April 21st that it appeared that FEMA had accepted the environmental assessment report prepared by Schnabel Engineering, and that since the environmental assessment was finalized, it could be posted on the FEMA website for the 30-day comment period. Before our meeting 2 weeks ago, when I followed up on this, I was unable to find the EA on the FEMA website. I then followed up with Schnabel Engineering and learned that unfortunately, as of May 5th, FEMA had still not approved the environmental assessment. Yesterday, May 18th, I did receive an email from Schnabel that FEMA had just provided what we hope are the final required revisions to finalize the EA. FEMA has on 3 occasions provided revisions to Schnabel. I thought after the second one they were done, but there was a third one that was received yesterday. We are hoping those will be the final revisions, and Schnabel should make those changes and return the EA to FEMA shortly, hopefully by the end of this week. If anyone is interested, I can give you the detailed timeline and specific actions that must still occur. But the short answer is that all of the relevant parties agree that we are looking at a minimum of 6 to 8 months until construction could begin. This estimate was agreed to by Schnabel, Chris Worley, and Travis Quisenberry, the county engineer. So that includes all the actions of the county once the FEMA grant portion is completed, which would include the invitation for bids and choosing a contractor and all of them, authorizing the funds as well by the Board of Supervisors. Some people who've seen this timeline think it's optimistic, but a girl can dream. As a practical matter, this means that construction would possibly begin as early as November 2020 or as late as January 2021. However, since that's the middle of winter, it is more likely that construction would begin in the spring of 2021. That's all I have, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett. Mr. Morris,
Nothing, ma'am.
Mr. Parker,
No report, ma'am.
Ms. Kupka.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do have a brief report. On May 14th, the Board of Supervisors held a budget hearing and adopted a second extension of the continuing declaration of local emergency for King George County. I spoke in support of this extension and the impact that it would have on our service authority customer base. Without it in place, we could not waive the late payment fees, charges, and interest on your accounts should you experience a financial hardship. As I stated on Thursday evening, we need to do everything we can to help our customers get through this, particularly when one of the primary, simplest courses of action to fight disease we as individuals can all exercise on our own is to wash your hands with soap and water. On another note, I want to thank Mr. Weekly and his staff for resolving an electronic billing issue for an elderly customer who lacked online access to the new billing system. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Kupka. As one of the only two members on the Board of Supervisors on the Service Authority, I too voted with Ms. Kupka and agreed that we needed to help out our customers, especially those that might be on financial hard times right now. But I have no further board report. Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Mr. Bennett.
I'd like to mention one thing before we're finished here with reports.
Go ahead.
I think my wife showed me on Facebook that Ms. Kupka and Stephanie Young, Dr. Young's wife, provided a meal for our Service Authority headquarters staff and all who were available. So I just want to say thank you on behalf of the board. I think that was a great thing for you ladies to do, and kudos. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett. I wish I could cook so well as they can. But yeah, we do appreciate that. And thank you, Ms. Kupka and Mrs. Young for doing that. Thank you. We move on to the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to accept the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Chair votes aye, motion carries. A report from the county attorney, Mr. Britton.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Weekly asked me to address the continuity of government ordinance that was passed by the county, and it's a 60-day ordinance and runs up through June the 6th. Would you like me to, and what effect that may have on the service authority? Would you like me to address it at this time? He asked me to address it in this report.
Yes, please.
Okay. So the King George County Board of Supervisors passed a continuity of government ordinance, which, amongst other things, allowed for this meeting to take place without a quorum. All of the boards and commissions in King George County, with the exception of the school board, which is an independently elected political body, but it does cover the service authority. So I believe Mr. Weekly got an inquiry what will happen if the King George County Board of Supervisors does not extend the continuity of government ordinance. And the effect on the service authority will be little, because since the time of the continuity of government ordinance, which allowed for the boards to meet entirely remotely, both the governor through his budget and the General Assembly by law amended House Bills 29 and 30 to allow for all electronic meetings. So in the event that the Board of Supervisors, when they address this on June the 2nd, whether to extend the continuity of government ordinance for that reason or for other reasons, it would have no effect on the ability of the King George County Service Authority Board to continue to meet without a quorum physically present. That's all.
Thank you so much for clarifying that, Mr. Britton. Does anybody else have any questions on this for Mr. Britton?
Madam Chair, I have a question.
Go ahead, Mr. Bennett.
Yes, Mr. Britton, how long does the General Assembly's authority last?
I will tell you right now. It lasts into 2021. Let me give you the exact date. Let's see. I don't have it anymore in front of me. I had it here earlier. Into 2021. They're looking at a permanent. They're looking at a permanent fix, but that wouldn't be until they reconvene for the next session. That would all be decided sometime in next spring and would go into effect unless it was an emergency, July 1st of next year. But the budget lasts, of course, for a year, and then the law, I think, had the same. It's House Bill 29 and 30. I think it had the exact same deadline.
Thank
Is that
you.
all your questions? Thank you, Mr. Bennett. Thank you, Mr. Britton. Do you have anything else?
No, ma'am.
Thank you. We will move on to our public hearing for the King George Service Authority FY 2020-21 rates. All right. The King George County Service Authority Board of Directors will now hold a public hearing, which has been advertised in accordance with the Code of Virginia to consider the proposed FY 2020-2021 regulatory amendment to fix and revise rates, fees, and other charges. I will ask Mr. Weekly to provide a brief overview. I will then open the floor for public comment. I ask that you limit your comments to 3 minutes in order to afford everyone an opportunity to speak. Upon completion of public comment, I will bring the matter back to the board for considerations. The board may or may not take action tonight, and information will be received during the public comments. If anyone would like to speak from online, please send me a message through the chat, or I will pause for a minute after. I know Mr. Weekly has one to read. After that, to afford anyone an opportunity to chime in. And if you do, just state your name and your residence address. Thank you so much. Mr. Weekly.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board, and to the general public who may be seeing this online. So I'm going to cover two things briefly. The first up is the public hearing. I'll have a budget presentation. We'll also include the FY21 rates, and then followed by an amendment for the rates as it deals with COVID-19 and local declared emergencies. So first, we have the budget presentation before you. Next slide, please, Mr. Dines. This budget cycle, the board from prior budget cycle had made the recommendation to go from 4 budget categories down to 2. So we have combined operation and maintenance into 2 categories, one being water, one being sewer. Before you on the screen is the total budget for water, just a little over 1.6 million. The total budget for FY20 for sewer is just over $3 million. With the transfer to capital, the debt service projects and reserves, $2,003,529. Total expenditures being $6,738,118. I will tell you, at our June 2nd meeting, the only addition, there's roughly about $85,000 that will be included. There's a transfer from the county to the service authority, and I believe that's based on their commitment when the industrial park had received some upgrades. So that will be reflected, and I will go over that when it comes time before adopting the budget. The increase from last year is just over $200,000. Next slide, please. So again, the increase for the water portion, we have $230,000 from FY20. Some key focal points for the general public. This does not encompass all expected expenditures, but just to give you the gist of some large items: the well house repairs, filter media replacement. That's the media that's put in the filter that helps filter your drinking water, and there's some water tank maintenance as well. On the sewer side, we had an increase from FY20 of $246,301. Some key focal points on that side for our wastewater treatment plant and pump stations. We have a variety of backlog maintenance. We did have a decent size chemical increase, and priority one scheduling for our pump stations per the DEQ approved pump station PER. We are required to meet reliability class 1, and priority 1 would be the remote auto dialers. We have installed 3, which leaves 32 remaining. We'll get at least 2 more installed in this budget cycle, but there'll be a 30 additional to capture in FY21. So that is in that budget. That's one of the large increase. That item alone represents $90,000 of expenditure. Next slide, please. So you'll see before you the revenue summary. Main thing to capture: total revenue matches total expenditure. We anticipate receiving $6,738,118. Fees are broken across for consumption. You have debt fees, which are fixed fees. We also have the capital reserve fee. But what you'll see too in here is the connection fee revenues that we receive. So when a customer requests to connect to our system, whether it's water or sewer or both, those are the revenues we anticipate receiving this year. And then smaller items such as bulk water sales, we do sell to water haulers. We have a small line item in there for septic billing. So those reflect our revenue summaries for FY21. Next slide, please. So again, total revenues for FY21, $6,738,118, an increase in total revenue of $209,234. This year is the second year of the five-year adopted rate plan that was passed last year by the board of directors. Last year was a 10% increase across the board. This year is a 4% increase across the board. And that's, again, consumption fees, debt service, and capital reserve fee. Next slide, please. And I think it's key to mention those rates take effect July 1 if the board, well, they've already adopted it, so those will take effect July 1, and customers will not see that until their September bill, since we bill bi-monthly. So there's no increase, no proposed increase for connection fees. What you see before you are the increases in the water consumption fees, moving from $4.98 to $5. And let me go to my slide. It's smaller on the screen. I apologize. Water consumption fees go from $4.98 to $5.18. Wastewater consumption goes from $11.63 to $12.10. This is based on consumption up to 10,000 gallons. If you go above 10,000 gallons, the rate for water moves from $5.68 to $5.91. The wastewater consumption fee changes from $12.63 to $13.14. And then your Water debt user fee is increased to $37.37. The sewer debt user fee increases to $60.99. The capital reserve fee increases from $2.20 to $2.29. So basically, we have generally two scenarios: a minimum bi-monthly bill customer, and that's currently based on 3,000 gallons or yet less usage. Their bill currently is $146.60. That would increase to $152.46. And again, that's based on 3,000 gallons. And last on the list, you'll see an average bi-monthly residential bill. Again, that's bi-monthly, that's for 2 months. This is based on 10,000 gallons. So that bill is currently $262.87. The increase would move it up to $273.38. Next slide, please. So there are no changes for bulk water sales, no changes for unusual wastewater fees, no change for our septic disposal fees, and there are no increases for account deposits. Tampering fees stay the same. Unmetered connections, so there are a few of those. I think roughly about 50. Actually, we just installed a meter on one recently, but the unmetered connections pay the higher rate, so that's based on the 10,000 gallons. And again, if you're a water and sewer unmetered customer, that goes from $262.87 to $273.38. If you are a water only unmetered customer, and this again is based on 10,000 gallons, your rate goes from $87.96 up to $91.48. For sewer only unmetered customers, your rate goes from currently $177.11 up to $184.19. For the fire suppression availability fees, those remain the same for availability and the water debt fee on those. Next slide, please. So I included this slide as a summary. I think this is where it hits home, is what can I actually see total of an increase on my bill? What does 4% increase look like this year? So again, if you're a minimum bill, that's based on up to 3,000 gallons consumption bi-monthly, so that's 2 months. You're looking at a $5.86 increase total. If you're an average bi-monthly customer, again, that's based on customers up to 10,000 gallons. You're looking at a bi-monthly rate increase of $10.51. So again, that's for 2 months. That's the increase. And I just want to mention some bullet points. The rate increase is to cover water and sewer maintenance backlog and address DEQ consent order items at our facilities. So these are things we have to do. They're not options. I also want to provide the next two points there. The connection projections for FY21 are 50 water and sewer connections. So those are full service connections. We project 2 water only, and we projected also 0 commercial connections. We don't have anything on the horizon. We have folks sometimes contact our office, but unless it's concrete and worked its way up through planning commission and board level, we don't count that in our projection. And the last, I want to let you know, our year-to-date connections for FY20, and this may have gone up in the last week or so because Hop Yard continues to roll out homes. We were at 65 water and sewer full service connection, 3 water only, and 3 commercial connections. But the difference there I want the public and the board to look at is that with an unknown economy right now, what we're facing, we want to stay with the 50 connections. Most importantly, that's with what the board of directors worked with Davenport, our financial consultants, on what we felt was the best model, so we were not over projecting. So, Madam Chair, that's for the budget presentation. I'd like to move on to the rate amendment before you open it up to public hearing.
That's fine. Continue on.
You got this, Mr. Dines? Okay. One moment, please. Okay, before you have the King George County Service Authority rate amendment. This is not to be confused with the other amendments that were non-rate related that Mr. Britt and I covered with the board at our last meeting. So section 30 is what you have before you tonight. That's the general rate policy and rate schedule. Edits were made to section 30 for the new water and sewer rates that go into effect on July 1st, 2020. Again, this was part of the 5-year adopted rate plan from last year. Also, provisions were added to section 30 to allow the general manager to waive certain fees and charges during a local declared emergency and during the declared confirmed emergency known as COVID-19. For those who are looking online, what you have outlined before you in yellow, Chris, if you can go to skip next slide, please. Continue. And okay, scroll down to the bottom, sir. Okay, so what's covered in this section, members of the board and to the public, basically what you saw is the rate increase in the budget presentation. It's just captured in the narrative form, but because our rates are in our regulations, that's why it's captured here. So this would be the rate of the water consumption fee for the increase. Next slide, please, Chris. So at the top, highlighted, you'll see the wastewater consumption fees. That's the increase reflected. Then you move up to tier 2 measure consumption. That's capturing the rate increase or the rate for metered consumption above 10,000 gallons. So that is for both water and wastewater. Followed by are the fixed flat rate debt service fees. So under item 2A, you will see the fixed rate for the water debt service. That's $37.37. For item 2B, you will see the fixed rate for debt service for sewer is $60.99. Again, that is flat fee for all of our customers. When you see in our budget, our debt service payment, those funds go towards our debt service. And then last on this page is item 3. It's just reflecting what your capital reserve fee will be for FY21, and that's $2.29. Next slide, please. On this slide, if you'll scroll down, please, sir, for or item U, starting there. This is the provisions that Mr. Britton was so kind to craft or edit. This will allow the provision for waiver of certain fees. Currently, the regulations do not give the general manager nor the board the authority to waive any fees. And based on discussion last time with the board, is my understanding that majority, or if not all, the board desired to do this. We just needed the policy to allow for that. So for the board and for the general public watching at home, item U is waiver of certain fees. So during a declared and confirmed local emergency, this would authorize the general manager to basically waive late payment fees, charges, and interest. And again, that provision was placed. So such waivers shall be considered emergency, temporary fee and/or charge amendments, and shall effectively set the fees and charges at $0 for the waiver term. The waiver term shall be from the first date of the declaration of local emergency to the last day of the month in which the local emergency ends. Such waivers shall have no effect on any other obligations of any customer under these regulations. All other late fees, charges, and interest accrues before such declaration of local emergency shall remain in full force and effect and shall not be waived and shall continue to accrue as set forth in these regulations. Item B is waiver of certain fees and charges, specifically for COVID-19. During the declared confirmed local emergency known as COVID-19, any and all late payment fees, charges, and interest anywhere authorized in these regulations, including septic waste disposal, are hereby waived on an emergency basis and shall be considered emergency, temporary fee and/or charge amendment, and shall effectively set the fees and charges at $0 of the waiver term. The waiver shall be from the first date of declaration of local emergency to the last day of the month in which the local emergency ends. Such waivers shall have no effect on any other obligations of any customer under these regulations. All the late fees, charges, and interest accrues before such declaration of local emergency shall remain in full force and effect and shall not be waived and shall continue to accrue as set forth in these regulations. So Madam Chair, members of the board, I want to give you just a brief summary from my memo. Please note that the adopted rates for July 1st, 2020 have been advertised, as well as the rate amendment suggestion. The advertisement informs our customers of the effective rate changes and provides the Board of Directors the ability to consider the amendment of waiving late fees during declared local emergencies and the confirmed local emergency known as COVID-19. My recommendation to the board would be to approve the changes as presented when you consider approving the budget on June 2nd, 2020. And Madam Chair, that is all I have for my presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Weekly. I know you have a correspondence. Do you just have one correspondence to read?
Yes, ma'am. I only have one. Would you like me to read that now?
Yes, I will. Thank you.
Okay. And I will also provide this to be filed with the record. I received an email from James P. Lynch of 8263 Oakwood Drive, King George, Virginia, 22485. It reads as such: Dear Madam Chair, over the last several years, the Service Authority has taken significant steps to move beyond the sad state of affairs of the past. Failures to meet regulatory standards, large fines, equipment and supply mismanagement, all leading to a lack of confidence in our public water and wastewater system. Through the efforts of this board, the ship is beginning to be righted. Transparent and aggressive management have gotten us back on track toward a properly functioning system. A major contributor was your decision to get the fiscal house in order. This necessitated a 5-year plan of rate increases, beginning with the current fiscal year FY 19-20. The board considered two choices. One was to have near level increases over the 5-year period, and the other was to have a larger increase the first year, followed by smaller increases. In order to deal with the most pressing equipment issues, the board decided on the first option, a 10% increase in FY 19/20, followed by 4% increases over the next 4 years. This allowed the most critical equipment issues to be addressed quickly while still providing financial support to tackle the remaining issues on a scheduled improvement program. The plan that you set in place last year has proven to be a good one. The physical plant is being brought up to snuff, and our test results are meeting regulatory requirements for discharges into our rivers. The budget under consideration is the second year of the 5-year plan, calling for a 4% increase in rates across the board. I encourage you to stick to the plan and pass the budget as advertised. Very sincerely, James P. Lynch.
Thank you, Mr. Weekly, and thank you, Mr. Lynch, for that statement. Do we have any other people that would like that sent correspondence to any board member or to you, Mr. Weekly?
Madam Chair, I have no further public comment that was submitted to me.
Well, I will ask anybody that's online if they'd like to give public comment. Please state your name and your address, and I will pause for a moment to wait to see if anybody would like to give public comment. Seeing that we have no public comment, I'll close public comment, and that will conclude the public comment portion of our public hearing. Do I have any discussion from members of the board?
Madam Chair, I have one item to add from staff. So what I'm tracking, and I mentioned to the board last time, but I want to make sure that everyone's still fine with the approach, was such as last year, you held your public hearing. The board did not take action that night. They took action at the following meeting. Of course, the board reserves the right to take action at the public hearing if they choose so. I am not advocating for that tonight. There's a resolution and Ms. Ward was so kind to work on. I'm currently reviewing that, and we will have that for the board at the next meeting. Again, the board has the authority and the right if they choose to vote tonight. I just want to make it clear that that is not my recommendation. My recommendation would be for the board of directors to adopt and appropriate via resolution at our next meeting. And then that adopted document, you're going to see, I'll mention in my general manager report, we have to send that to VRA as part of our support agreement. That was an annual item that we would submit. So basically, it just allows us to get you the proper paperwork, is why I'm recommending adoption at the next meeting and not here tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Weekly. Is everyone fine with that, Ms. Kupka?
Yes, Madam Chair. The only question I would have is for Mr. Britton. Does that in any way affect our ability to carry out the rate amendment section with regard to waiving the late fees and the charges?
Yes. However, as my understanding, Mr. Weekly and his staff had anticipated this and have been holding any of those pending action by the Service Authority Board of Directors. Mr. Weekly can confirm that, so it would have no practicable effect, but his ability to change that rate to zero, which is what we're calling a waiver for late fees, penalty, and interest, would be mandated at the June 2nd meeting if you adopted U and V, U being for water and V being for sewer. But Mr. Weekly can confirm that, but I think he's been withholding late fees, penalty, and interest in anticipation of the board vote.
That is accurate, Mr. Britton.
So, Ms. Kupka, that it would have no practicable effect as a result of the anticipatory action of getting this ready, the continuity of government ordinance and what have you, the local declaration of emergency, the extension of the local declaration of emergency, but you can act tonight on the rates, or you can wait for June 2nd. In June 2nd, and one of the reasons Mr. Weekly is recommending that you wait until that time, you'll have 3 motions. One is on the budget, one is on the rates, which would be affirming the rate set in the 5-year plan, plus altering U and V, adding those sections. And then a third would be to amend and adopt the new rules and regulations to the Service Authority, all at 3 separate motions, but on one board meeting.
Thank you very much.
All right, Mr. Bennett, how do you feel?
If Mr. Britton says we can wait until June 2nd, or our first meeting in June, and Mr. Weekly is okay with that, it's fine with me.
Okay, Mr. Parker?
I'm okay with waiting.
Mr. Morris?
June 2nd, fine.
All right, I agree. So, Mr. Weekly, we'll hear from you on June 2nd on this. And I'll close the public, move on to action items.
So, Madam Chair, we don't have action items for you tonight, nor discussion items.
Okay, we'll move on to your general manager's report. The floor is yours again, Mr. Weekly.
Okay, thank you. Before you tonight, I have a brief general manager report. So first, next slide, please. We get to. Okay, under general water information, so we received our water system site report. Tonka, who's a manufacturer for many of our water sites, they came out and evaluated Hop Yard, Oakland, Perkins Corner, and Fairview Beach water systems. This was something that actually, I believe, happened in middle to late February. We finally got the site reports back and some estimated cost of some items that need to be repaired or replaced. So I'm just reporting on that here tonight. Most all of our systems need media added. So again, for those, media is what you put in your filters. It helps with filtration for the drinking water. Some need more media bed than others, but that is something that we have to maintain. The large expense item, there are PLC control panels, because most systems now or have some type of automation or program design. There were 3 locations, Hop Yard, Oakland, and Perkins, that would need upgrades to those panels. And that upgrade would be purchasing the panel. It's a prefab panel with the PLC and everything in it. It would ship. We would mount it, and then Tonka would come in, power up, and do the programming. Quite an expensive price tag. It is their product, so when you go around trying to look at system integrators, some of these things you're kind of locked into a certain provider. That cost is around $31,000 per control panel. So we will be going through and looking for the best steps forward. I'll report back to the board. We'll look at if we have any positives this year, but I anticipate trying to tackle this next year, because this comes in late for this budget cycle to try to capture. Everything it's working. Oakland Park has some communication situation, but there's nothing's keeping our customers without water. This doesn't affect water quality. It does affect operations such as manually backwashing versus letting the automated system do that, for example. So while you can do some things manual, it is not recommended by myself nor the design engineers for that to be the continuous mode of operation. So just want to report that we're going to have to spend some money at the well systems just mentioned. Next slide, please.
Madam Chair?
Sorry about that. I had my mic muted. Go ahead, Mr. Bennett.
Before we leave that slide, Mr. Weekly, I just want to make sure I'm understanding on the water slide. Are we going to do the media to the filters now, or is that for next budget year also?
It'll be for FY21. We don't have any water quality issues, but anytime you're shrinking, I'm gonna try to put my hand up here, the amount of media you have available, that lowers your filtration capabilities. Again, we're not failing any water quality standards, but if you ignore that, you can stand the chance of not filtering your water, whether it's depending on the media you have, you're filtering out iron or manganese or something like that. So we just want to, we needed a report to tell us what is our conditions of our equipment, because these are closed vessels that you cannot see without taking the system offline, opening up manways to inspect and measure the depth. So this was something that I'm a guy who operates off known value. So we wanted to know what was the depth of the media in our filters, and that's what this exercise did. So we will capture that in FY21, sir.
Okay, one other question. The $31,000 is for each one of these PLC control panels?
Yes,
and
sir.
We're going to need 3, right? Is that what
Yes,
I'm reading?
sir, that is correct. The media would be something we would look to do immediately FY21. The panels, they are operating, except for one system, Oakland Park. It's not fully communicating as I would like and as the engineer would like. Again, we can do some things manual. I'm going to have to take a look at, when we sit down to talk about capital planning, is this something that, maybe one or two of these we can push off to FY22. Again, we don't have anything right now that's affecting water quality, but some of this, for example, Hop Yard, we have operators who have to climb ladders and do some adjustment on valves, and so there's some safety concerns with that, but primarily the system should be able to operate as designed. And I'm not saying there would be operator error, but it adds to the possibility if you're moving outside of the programmed automation versus a manual operated facility.
Okay, that's all I had, Mr. Weekly. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett. Mr. Weekly?
Okay. Mr. Dons, next slide. Thank you, sir. So I received the draft Perkins Corner wastewater treatment plant preliminary engineering report. That's the PER. We received that from Wiley and Wilson. I did the first review of that. It was minor typos, but I did ask them to add some headings because when they evaluated 3 different type of treatment processes, and I just told them, well, when you get to the alternative 1, alternative 2, and 3 scenarios, we need to have what that treatment option was in the heading, so just for following along purposes. So I realize not everybody currently on board went through that process last year, so I plan on taking this as an opportunity to circulate this information as soon as I get this revised version back from Wiley and Wilson. It's still draft form until we can have comment from the board level, but I'll take that opportunity to discuss it a little more in detail. Also, depending on the preference of the board, and we have this emergency ordinance that we're talking about, whether we're going to, is the board, or and particularly Board of Supervisors, looking to have the public allowed. I know we're at a 10-person minimum in this room. If the board desires to have at least one, no more than 2 of Wiley and Wilson staff to be present to present, that is in their scope of work. So they're working on that presentation now. The question will become if the board would like to have them present, and I realize, but we can do it virtually as well. So I would probably err on the virtual, because I know that means we're bringing folks in from another locality, and our desire is, we don't do any unnecessary travel ourselves. So as I share with them on the phone today, not only do we want to protect ourselves, we want to protect our business associates or folks that we're doing business with. So unless the board desires public, we will just work off a virtual presentation format if that's okay with members of the board.
Fine with me. Is everyone okay with that?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. And please, after I circulate this, either before or definitely after the presentation is given to the board, I anticipate us having some meaningful conversation, maybe more than just one meeting. This plan is basically, as my understanding, is tracking based on some development. We do know that there was a public hearing postponed on some development. The Service Authority has a signed agreement with that developer, but that is all, waiting on what is decided at the public hearing level. So even if the board of directors liked what they hear for this draft PER, there still has to be a decision at the Board of Supervisors level on some development, because that's the necessity of this plan. If the county desires to grow at whatever fashion, if that's residential, business, what have you, that's their prerogative. We have to be able to offer those water and sewer services. So again, we'll have some additional comments and time to talk about it, but please don't be shy. Phone calls, emails. Let's have some discussion once you have that in hand. Next slide, please, Mr. Dines. So lastly, I wanted to report, as part of our VRA, that's Virginia Resource Authority support agreement, for the line of credit note, the service authority is required to notify the board of any annual deficiency amount if the authority expects revenues to be insufficient to pay the debt service obligation. I respectfully attest here tonight that the service authority has sufficient funds or sufficient revenues to pay their annual debt obligation. So we do not have any shortfalls. We do not have any plans or any expectations to not meet those debt obligations. So I just wanted to mention that. I know it's required in that support agreement, and I'm reporting to the board tonight, so you have that understanding. Tracking along that line, the next required annual submittal to VRA, because that the support agreement spells out certain things. Once the board adopts the FY21 budget, then I will have to provide the FY adopted budget to them. Again, these are tracking mechanisms. When we reached this support agreement with Virginia Resource Authority, and there is parity with the county, we said these are items we provide. So it's kind of a check and balance of, how are you doing financially? How are you meeting your debt obligations? What funding have you committed for the following year to ensure you are sticking with your commitments? So, which we are. But I just wanted to report to the board that I'm tracking those support agreement requirements, and one we just satisfied, and then the other, once adoption happens of the budget, I will submit that to them. Madam Chair, that's all I have for my general manager report.
Thank you, Mr. Weekly. Do I have a motion for adjournment?
I apologize. I do have one other thing. It wasn't in the report, but I too want to personally thank Ms. Kupka, Ms. Young, as well as there's a gentleman named Caleb, a wonderful sixth grader, who also had a kind heart that provided, I believe it was muffins. It was in a goodie bag. So I'd like to personally thank Ms. Kupka. That was so well received. To have an elected official come by and do that, it speaks volumes to morale, and it's definitely appreciated by me and the staff. So thanks again.
Mr. Weekly, do I have a motion for adjournment?
Madam Chair, before I do that, I'd just like to say one thing real quickly. Dr. Young and Mr. Dines, the sound tonight from the boardroom was great. It's improved every meeting since we've been doing this, but tonight it was really good. Everybody came through really loudly and clearly. So I want to thank you for that very much. It's really working well. And with that said, I will move that we adjourn to June 2nd, 2020 at 5:30 p.m. in the boardroom.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Chair votes aye, but I need a script to read. This meeting is hereby adjourned to the next regularly scheduled meeting on June 2nd, 2020 at 5:30 p.m. That meeting may be held by electronic means and remote participation only, and may be closed to the public being physically present. All citizens are encouraged to participate in advance or during the meeting by electronic means as provided by the county. I will now adjourn this meeting of the King George Service Authority Board of Directors, and the Board of Supervisor meeting will start in 10 minutes. So that's at 6:34.